Welcome in. This is your betting preview for this week's AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. I'm Rick Game, and that right there, Andy Lack. Andy, hello and happy Tuesday to you.
Yeah, man. It is, I guess I'm kind of settling down back now in LA. I've been doing a bunch of traveling. I know you've been on the road yourself, but we're kind of settling into a really, really nice stretch of golf right now.
Yeah, it's Pebble, Phoenix, Riv, Honda. Then I think it's like API players. So outside of like Honda, which no offense to the Honda, it's just probably not going to get a great field. And it's going to be, I mean, it's a hard golf course and all that, but like this is probably my favorite stretch. And then it'll be the Masters before you know it.
Right. Yeah. I was just about to say, what are we within, gosh, what is Masters week? April 10th or something like that? Like April, first weekend in April. Yeah.
2 months and 2 weeks or something like that. 2 months and 10 days.
Do you feel like you have a clear sense right now of like who should be the Masters favorite?
No.
Do you feel like Rahm and Rory have kind of emerged as the two best players?
Yeah, that's I think they're very clearly in a tier of their own right now. I mean, you can look at the stats, like, you know, their last 8 starts individually are just like insane, but we're going to get a lot of guys playing into, like, this is where it really starts. Like this stretch that we're talking about where guys are going to go to Phoenix and it's going to be stacked, and Riv and it's going to be stacked, and we're going to get Bay Hill and we're going to get the players and we're going to get all that before the Masters. Like we're going to learn a lot in the next handful of weeks.
Agreed. Maybe not from this tournament specifically, just to segue us a little bit, but yeah, in general, totally agree. This is my favorite stretch as well.
Yeah, there's kind of a couple of spots with this stretch where there are generally like natural resting spots for a lot of these guys. This ends up being one of them. Honda ends up being one of them. You throw in the Pro-Am and you don't get a super strong field, but the top of it's pretty interesting, Andy. This is the grid via the homies over at Odds Checker, where we can shop all the lines and make sure we have the best lines available. There's kind of a big 3 here. It's Jordan Spieth 11-1, Matt Fitzpatrick 11-1, Victor Hovland 12-1. Obviously, Spieth has the great history around this place. Matt Fitzpatrick might just be the best of these 3, and then Victor kind of tweaked the schedule a little bit. Didn't play in Dubai, didn't play at Torrey, opted for here. Obviously, won the U.S. Amateur at Pebble Beach in 2018, so at least some decent vibes. But that's the 3 at the top of the board.
Yeah, you know, on first glance, I was kind of looking at this and I was like, man, why did Hovland choose to play Pebble Beach over Torrey Pines, this driver-heavy course where he's going to have a long iron in his hands all the time? But you look at the history, Rick, not only did he win the 2018 US Am, but I was at that 2019 US Open at Pebble Beach.
That's right.
Not only was he low amateur, he gained like 13 strokes ball striking and almost led the entire US Open field as an amateur in tee to green. He hit the ball well enough to win the US Open as an amateur. He ended up losing like 4 strokes putting or something like that. So clearly good vibes. And for me, I am not betting one of those guys at the top. I just think that there's too much variance involved in this type of tournament, but Victor would be my favorite if I was.
Let's get a temperature check on Matt Fitzpatrick, who I think is probably just like the best player in the field, and he does it in a way, Andy, that's super well-rounded. And that's always something that when you've got like a 3-course rotation, I kind of like that, right? It's one thing to have one course and your strengths and weaknesses, but these guys are going to play around at 3 different golf courses before a 54-hole cut. The well-rounded nature of Matt Fitzpatrick makes him feel a little bit safer than some of these other guys.
Yeah, I mean, and he's got good history here too. I remember betting him last year. He finished 6th. He was right kind of in the mix. My biggest concern with Fitzpatrick as it stacks up to kind of the other elites is that you're right. He is very well rounded, but if we are nitpicking one part of his game, he just hasn't been great at generating a ton of scoring opportunities for himself inside 150 yards, which I believe is so essential on this course. Like, this is a course, I think, just looking at the weather as we stand here on Tuesday morning Pacific time, like, I'm not seeing a ton. It's going to be a little chilly, as it always is this time of year, but I think that you're probably going to have to get to 18, 19, 20 under this week. And I don't know if I have as much faith in Fitzpatrick getting there as I do Spieth or Hovland. Oops, lost your audio.
That's such a rookie move. I put myself on mute to drink my coffee to be a good boy, and then I forgot. The next tier has a defending champion in it. Tom Hoge, 22-1. Mav McNeely, obviously, we know the connections to Pebble Beach, 20-1. Jameis is here, was like 5 clear through 36 last year, 25-1. Andrew Putnam, 28. That's kind of the second tier of golfers. Is there a name to be clicked?
I mean, I may not be the best barometer of this because I think I'm betting like 10 guys over 70-1 this week. But in that range, like, I think there are a couple really strong options. I mean, the number on Hoge is a little short for me, but like, the reason that I was on Hoge last year was because he was the best wedge player in the field and the best at generating scoring opportunities for himself inside 150 yards. That hasn't changed. He's still the best wedge player in the field, right? And if that formula worked out so well for us last year, like, what reason to change it up?
Yeah, I don't generally get in the habit of being like, oh yeah, this guy's definitely going to successfully defend his title and all that stuff. But you're like, nothing has, like, he's better now than he was last year when he won this thing. He still has this unreal ceiling where he can snap off and gain 10 strokes on approach like he did at the Tournament of Champions. And you add like 1 or 2 strokes with the putter and you're in business. Yeah. I mean, I look at that next tier. Like, I don't mind Seamus. Seamus plays well on short golf courses. I probably won't get to McNeely because everybody's just betting the crap out of him. And if he wins, I won't even be even on McNeely. Like, I don't know how I can pull the trigger on it. So like, I might just see if Hoge can run it back to back.
Yeah. The only thing with Hoge that's changed is the investment that we would have to make on him, right?
Sure.
Like, last year I got him, I believe he won this tournament at 60-1 last year.
I was going to say 70. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. So definitely something in that range. I think now there were some lingering. What does that say? Is that a 27 or a 22?
22. 22 is the longest available on Hoge right now. As short as 19 in some places.
Right. I think there were some lingering 25s and maybe some 28s on Monday morning. But yeah, I think with Hoge, like, my buy price on him here would have been 25 and up. And I know it's a matter of not much in the grand scheme of things, but it just feels a little too high for me to get my money.
If you can shop some of these in the next tier, Justin Rose as short as 29, as long as 40. Looking through the grid for a couple of other ones. Actually, the Seamus Power number was as short as 16, as long as 25-1. So as we get into the 40s and 50s here, Andy, these are your Joel Damons, your Denny McCarthy's, Alex Smalley, Thomas Dietrich. Like, what are the chances that we can get one of these guys to actually win the golf tournament? Like, I like Dietrich. Like, Dietrich finishing inside the top 10 wouldn't surprise me at all. Dietrich winning it, I'm not sure about.
Yeah, I bet Dietrich to win it at 48-1. So I have similar concerns, but it just feels like a talent play to me. At you're not really buying him at his highest point. You're not really buying him at his lowest point. I think 48-1 is a pretty good number to eat right now on a player that I believe is pretty supremely talented and in my opinion, one of the 10 best players in the field. But yeah, I would, just to highlight again what you said, shop around this week. I mean, go look at a guy like Taylor Moore, who I bet at 70 to 1. He's 33 to 1 at some places, right? There's just so much variance with the Bucks this week because this middle range, it's really easy to have certain opinions on guys that maybe other places don't, right? Like if you're a Davis Riley guy, then, you might be able to find some numbers on Davis Riley. If you're really high on Will Gordon's talent, other places may not be as high on Will Gordon's talent. So for me, like it was just a bunch of my guys this week, like Gordon, Shelton, Sig, Moore, Dietrich, like just we're playing the hits and we're running it back, my friend.
I'll get to Shelton. As long as 90 as short as 70, he's not very long off the tee. That's not going to hurt him here. We've seen him pop a couple. He's got like 2 top 10s in his last 4 starts. This feels like a play. I mean, we've seen Ted Potter Jr. win here. We've seen Nick Taylor win here. It is certainly not like, as any 3-course rotation goes, you're going to get some pretty volatile results and some randomness. Like we are absolutely in this range, like the range that I'm scrolling through right now, Joseph Bramlett 100 to 1, like would not be surprised at all if one of these guys won the golf tournament.
Yeah, me neither. And that's why even with the trend of so many top of the board players hitting, I still feel comfortable in this event sticking with the normal strategy that worked for me at this event last year, which is again, like I'm going to seek to find value on a tournament that has a lot of variance based on POA putting and the fact that it's going to 3 courses and weather and all of those things that make you squeamish about betting a guy like Victor Hovland at 11 to 1 in a 156 man field, right? So I do think that this is a week where you can keep that same strategy and kind of hunt for guys, well, north of 100, I guess, as well.
Yeah. What's the longest, like, who's the longest guy you'd bet here? Higo's 125.
Yeah. I think the longest on my current card is Sig at 100.
Okay.
But like I think I have 6 guys between 50 and 100. So I don't think you need to go like dumpster diving here. I'm definitely not placing an outright wager on any of these names that you're scrolling.
That I'm scrolling.
Right
I'm in the 500
somewhat
to 1.
aimlessly. Yeah, you're just kind of like, it seems therapeutic to you, so I wasn't going to stop it.
Yeah, I liked it.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any need to place outright wagers on, Kevin Roy or Harrison Endicott this week.
All right, so to put a bow on it, you're kind of living in that longer, triple digits are just in front of it for a larger than usual card is what it sounds like.
Yeah, 50 to 100. 50 to 100 this week. Play your guys.
Play your guys. Okay, now that's the outright market. The matchup market, obviously a little bit different. So I've got the bro throw numbers up here, and they've got a ton of options. I see Dietrich in a couple of matchups, one against Denny McCarthy. I see him against Andrew Putnam. How do we deal? Like, I think Maverick McNeely is really interesting, right? We kind of glossed over him in like the outright market, betting him at 20 or 22 to 1. I'm not particularly interested in that. Playing him in one and done where he's going to be super popular, or in DFS again, where he's probably going to be super popular. Again, not sure if that's my route. Is this the better way to get access to somebody like that, who you're not necessarily playing the game theory side of things as much as you would be in another format?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is one of the events, like, so this is the first week that we don't have football in 19 weeks, right? So you're going to get a lot more money into the marketplace this week, whether it be through betting or DFS, of football guys that are, just starting to check out golf for the first time as well. So what usually happens on weeks like those from a DFS perspective, sometimes it creates a little bit of groupthink, right? So I wouldn't be shocked if you see a couple names that are like very obvious choices, whether that be Maverick McNeely, whether it be Ben Griffin, whether it be Matthew Neesmith, right? Like these guys that are going to check a lot of boxes, obviously, for everyone, for anyone who's running a model this week. So I do think that this matchup market is kind of like a good way to get down on some of the guys. And if you're looking at our ownership over on RickRunGood and seeing like 15-20%, I would lead you in this direction as well.
Yeah, there's some really deep matchups here on Bro Throw as well. They're sickos for putting Matty Schmid and Matty Schwab in a matchup together. The two guys that are like most confused. That is absolutely sick that they went and did that.
What
So
direction's Andy W going on that one?
yeah,
Yeah,
those
those are the guys that always. I mean, can you pick either of those guys out of a lineup?
No.
Yeah,
I couldn't pick them out of a lineup. Like if both of them stood in front of me and said which one's which, I don't think I could do it.
Yeah, and I'm pretty good. I'm bad with names, good with faces. Like I can, like faces come back to me pretty quickly. The Schmidt or Schwab Schmid thing.
Yeah.
I hope one of them either just like emerges as awesome and different. Some of these guys need nicknames too, man.
I used to always get Chris Stroud and someone else confused. I can't remember who it is, but it took me like a year to get through that.
Yeah, there's a Harris English one that everyone mixes up, right?
Hudson Swafford, because they look so much alike.
English. Yeah, and they're both like Georgia guys. Yeah. So
we have a group on Bro Throw. So this is just where you bet against each other. You don't have to pay the house juice. We're up to 430 because I just admitted those 6 people. So if you want to join that, it'd be great. There's a link in the description. I think it's just brothrow.com/Rick. It's private. I'll have to accept you when you get in there, but then we can bet on Schmid and Schwab together and not know what the outcome is going to be. We need to talk a little bit about props, and we need to talk about one and done selections for this week, which I'm very excited about. But first, we're going to just hear a quick word about Andy's podcast. Andy Lack is one of the nerdiest golf guys that I know, and I mean that as an absolute compliment. His knowledge of course architecture allows him to create some of the most actionable course previews available, and he offers up pure expertise on his own podcast, the Inside Golf Podcast. Twice a week, he offers course breakdowns, DFS, and betting strategy for every PGA Tour event, and he expands the universe by bringing on entertaining and knowledgeable guests who can offer a different viewpoint of the game that we love. Follow Inside Golf Pod on Twitter and download Inside Golf wherever you download podcasts. Okay, we're back. The props market. I got to start beating up these PrizePicks guys to get these out a little bit earlier because they are not out yet. So back to kind of our general strategy here. And I think this actually worked pretty well for the American Express where, 3 different golf courses, the scoring averages are going to be something to keep an eye on as we go through this, because I think the nature of this is going to be that PrizePicks is going to move a little bit slower than we are in trying to figure out the differences here.
Right. And one thing to keep in mind about this event, just in general as well, really wide landing areas off the tee. Yeah. Right. So that is just one specific thing about this course that you can say, okay, the first thing I'm going to look for is if the fairways look a little bit lower than they should be, because this is one of the easiest courses to hit fairways on in the PGA Tour.
Also, you'll see a lot of guys, you don't have to hit driver, right?
No.
So a lot of these guys are clubbing down. They're much more accurate off the tee. That was a mental check mark for me too, is like when these come out, the fairway numbers are one, like I'm going to be clicking that first.
Oh, 100. You don't need to. Have you ever played Pebble, Rick?
No.
Okay. No, you got to get out there, but yeah, you don't, it is not a course. And Spyglass is similar as well. I mean, Spyglass, I think, is a little bit more driver heavy. It's a little bit more receptive to like a bomb and gouge approach, but neither of those courses require driver at all. So that's kind of why you see such a high accuracy percentage, because you combine the fact that the fairways are awfully wide to begin with the fact that some of the shorter par 4s on Pebble are forced layups anyway, right? So you have these wide fairways where you can't even hit driver.
Yeah. Go get ready for these props to drop on PrizePicks. The code is Rick. There's a link in the description. You can get signed up and get your deposit match so that when these do drop, you're ready to rock. And they've got obviously they have like League of Legends and everything else that's going on here. So go get set up and get ready to rock and roll. Rock and roll, Andy, is exactly what I did to you last week in the one and done. I had someone named Max Homa, and you had someone named Will Zalatoris. Would you like me to refresh you on how those two did last week?
It feels like one of those seasons where just right off the bat, like nothing has gone right. And I don't know if I need like an extra. I was talking about this with Cam Davis the other day where I was like,
Oof.
man, I've never been more wrong on a guy for like a 3-week stretch in like my sports betting career. Like I don't know what happened. I look at the numbers, I look at my picks, and I don't know what happens. And that kind of feels like the theme of my one and done season this year. So it's still early. We're not in panic mode at all. Like, I mean, I'm not even thinking about this gap really until we get into the first major. You know, my goal is to just tighten the gap heading into the Masters. But yeah, I mean, the problem is that losing Will stings, right? It's like if I used Cameron Davis last week, that wouldn't have stung, but I think losing Will stings.
Yeah, getting 0 from Zalatoris is tough.
Yeah.
So for the audio listeners, the gap is, so I'm at 1.8 million, Andy's at 213,000. So 1.6 is the gap there for those who are just listening to the audio.
Which is like a win and another top 10, right? But a
Or
win.
I mean, or like a runner up at any of these like 13 elevated events.
Yeah, are the runner-ups getting $1 million now?
Oh my
for
God,
some
they're
of the
gonna get the
elevated?
runner. It's gonna be yeah, it's gonna be outrageous.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so again, like I'm still in it. We're not in panic mode yet.
All right, so for this week, very likely the most popular plays: Mav McNeely, Jordan Spieth. I probably prefer to hang on to Spieth until later. I think some reasonable options for me versus you, but also maybe in some larger ones. I think reasonable options would be Seamus Power or Tom Hoagie. Like what caliber of golfer are you willing to burn here?
I'm willing to go up to 50-1, right? Like you can play Dietrich here. You could play Keith Mitchell if you want. I mean, I don't hate Spieth this week as a one and done option. I think he'll be definitely on one of my one and done, my choice in one of the leagues. But you know, I just like, again, this is, what are we dealing with? $8 million purse, Rick?
I think it's 9, but yeah. So the first is 1.6.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's kind of been, right? So I think that you can still kind of deploy a similar strategy. Look, if you've been using the strategy of, I'm going to pick guys below 50-1 that generally aren't carrying a lot of ownership, like you're going to continue to do well, right? Like all these guys, even like Hideki was a good one and done play last week. Sungjae was a good one and done play last week. So you can probably just pick, you know, one of the guys in the 30-1 range that isn't maybe as popular.
So for our purposes, I think it's probably a coin flip for me between Hoagie and Seamus. I'll just take Tom Hoagie. I'm not going to use him anywhere else. I don't think much has changed. I think that he can absolutely pop and finish inside the top 5, if not win this golf tournament. So I will roll with Hoagie versus you in a larger one. Yeah, I think I was lucky enough. I think I'm in 6 one and done. I had Max Homa in every single one last week. And
Did you really? So are you one of those guys where you just go all in?
No, honestly, no. But that is last week. I was just kind of looking at my position. I actually thought he was going to be a lot less owned than he ended up being. I think he ended up at like 14% or something like that. I thought he was going to be like 7 or 8. So I just was like, you know what? I think this is really good. There's a lot of season left. I don't usually put the same guy in. I did, and he snapped off a win. So that was like about as good as it could ever get for me. I don't usually.
That's incredible, because I usually don't play that way. I think I'm in 4 or 5, and I don't generally have the ball. Like I kind of like to hedge, right? I usually pick like guys that just miss my outright card, or I'm not going to play in DraftKings. And
the other thing was I wanted to use Sungjae and I wanted to use Hideki, and I'd already used them in like 2 of them. So I was like, all right, well, like I'll just roll with Homa here.
Yeah. Well, it was a good pick, my friend. Congrats to you, sir. So your official pick is Hoagie this week.
That is correct.
All right. I'm going to play Spieth. I just think that I'm cool with not using him at the majors. And listen, Valero, Byron Nelson, Heritage, Pebble, like this is in that range. This is one of those courses, if not his best, right?
Yeah.
Colonial. So I think he is pretty good for a high. This is the type of event that he seemingly would finish top 25 at, even when he was going through like major slumps. So I feel
For
pretty
sure.
good about the floor. And if he could get me like a T6 this week and like Hoagie comes in 50th, like just get some momentum, get some momentum going in the right direction.
I will probably play Spieth in one of these one and dones or two of them or something like that. But I do kind of like it's so interesting because you just rattled off all like there's so many good spots for, right? And a lot of them have elevate. I kind of like the idea of getting through the Masters and then using Spieth because 20% are going to use him here, like 15% are going to use him at the Master. Like basically he's going to be half the people are going to have already used him by the time we get to May, that I'm going to have my pick of whatever elevated event I want to run him out at to do that.
No, it's a good point. So let me ask you this then. Would you feel more comfortable burning Hovland or Fitzpatrick this week than Spieth?
Would I feel more comfortable burning Hovland? No, I would. If those are my three options, I would use Spieth.
I was going to say too, because I think if I think about that question for myself, I think I would want to use Spieth here.
Yeah.
Over those other two guys.
Right. If that's my only option, then I would use Spieth here. And you're right. It's like mega course history, mega, like it doesn't matter really what the form is. He's going to be vibing with Jake Owen. They're going to be using the creativity. They're going to be just like, he's going to be engaged for 6.5 hours for 4 days.
Yeah. I guess the only concern is everybody is going to be using him, or do you think that more people go in like the Matt McNeely, Seamus Power direction?
If I pull the Office Football Pool site-wide numbers, McNeely's 22%, Jordan Spieth is 20%. Now, Power is 12, Fitzpatrick 10. That's the top 4. But I don't know, man. I mean, well, I guess it depends on what league you're in. But like, Homo was supposed to be a lot lower than he was last week. I mean, it's obviously very possible that these are off by 7 to 8% in any direction.
Sure. I guess it just depends. All right. Well, let's do it, Jordy. Let's get back on the right track and hopefully get some positive momentum in my direction.
Jordan Spieth for Andy, Tom Hoagie for myself, and we'll see if Andy can close the gap a little bit. Okay. That'll do it. Andy's got his articles up on RickRunGood.com with more coming this week. Great course previews and rankings and ownership and just final thoughts, everything that you need to attack this week from all angles. And you can follow him on Twitter at ADPLAC Sports. You can find me at RickRunGood. This has been your betting preview for this week's AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Good luck.